In this tutorial, I'd like to show you how to import Photoshop documents into Adobe After Effects, and a couple of different things that you should know about using Photoshop. Let me first go to a Photoshop document, and I want to show you the different layers that I have here. I currently have a background layer, and then I have layer 1, which really should be named. This will be my light. And I'm going to actually change this to an overlay mode, because I want you to see what happens when you import that overlay mode into After Effects. And I also want to show you a couple other things. I have some text here called title. This one is just very simple text. And the next one, I actually have blending modes or effects applied to that particular layer. And we want to see how those effects come into After Effects. So in order to import this, I can go to After Effects and I can choose Import by right-clicking and choose File. And unfortunately that means that I have to go look for it, or I even like the ability that I can go to my document folder and just drag that file right into After Effects. When you import a Photoshop document, it asks you to import it one of two different ways. You can import it either as a footage item, which will merge everything together, or you can choose just one of the layers to open, or you can open it as a composition. Opening it as a composition allows you to be able to animate the different layers inside of there as well. So let's choose Open as a composition. So if I click OK, you'll see that it is now opened up the BG with text, which is the background with text file, and it's actually created a folder for the different layers that were imported from that Photoshop document. Now if I go into the composition, actually I need to double click on it and it's not allowing me in when I'm making the video. So let me click on it real quick. Now that I've double clicked on that composition and it's opened, you'll see it's a little bit large, so I'm going to zoom out with the Control minus keys. And here's what I want you to take a look at. Here are our different layers. We currently have, if I look at the bottom, the background, the layer 1, which we did call light but we never saved, and notice that the blending mode is gone. Now we have lots of blending modes in After Effects. We can find that under the mode column, and if I go to normal, you'll see that we have lots of different ones, including overlay. So we might have to reapply different modes that we had in Photoshop that aren't being applied when we imported. And let's look at title here. That came in just fine. And then look at this one. Here's title here comment. The title here is copy, and it's showing the glow. And then we have title here copy as well. Now notice that the blue the blue gradient that we had on top of the text is not showing. However, the outer glow is showing, but in After Effects that outer glow has been turned into a whole new layer. Now, certain things such as glows don't work very well in After Effects. They come in as a separate from Photoshop, let's say, so it's best to put them in After Effects. So I might delete that, select the second title, and then I could apply an effect such as perspective drop shadow. And if I drag drop shadow over to it, you can see that I can change the color to anything that I want, such as white. And here's that. Here, I'll change the opacity up to 100%, and now you can see it's got a little bit of a glow. If I take that back down, there you can see that glow. So sometimes we have to apply certain effects in After Effects instead of using them from Photoshop. And it also gives me a lot more control when this is an effect in After Effects than the separate layer. You can also, of course, import lots of different things from Photoshop, as well as transparency when you have a layer, such as if you wanted to bring in something like a PNG that doesn't have anything on the outside. Those work great in After Effects because they come in as an object that has that automatic masking in After Effects. So experiment with importing different types of files from Photoshop, and you'll find what works out for you. Continuing this tutorial, I'd like to show you one special type of channel in Photoshop which is really important for when you import images. Now currently, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Currently I have a parrot who's sitting on the on this graphic. This is a Photoshop graphic, and I want to clean off the background from this parrot so that you don't see it anymore. Now there's a couple ways to do this. You always know that you can create a path around a parrot, or a path around an object rather, and you can use that as a selection to get rid of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and make this path, and I'll be back in just 1 second. Of course right now I'm making a shape, so I need to make sure I go back to the path tool and not the shape tool, and actually create a path, not a shape. And you'll see me when I'm done. Actually, that's what it is. Just 1 second. Now I've completed a path around my object, and I need to go to my path panel to be able to see this path. Currently it's a work path. I'm going to go ahead and save that path just so I can make sure that I use it later. Now in print, I could go ahead and tell this path to be a clipping path, but that won't work when it comes to video. Instead, I'm going to make a selection from this path by clicking on the Control key, going back to layers, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the background. So I'm going to use the Control I to inverse this selection, press the backspace, and you'll now see that the parrot is completely on just a transparent background. Now if I were to save this file, I could save it as a Photoshop file, or I could even save it as a PNG to be able to bring that in. PNG, this will be transparent. If I used a PNG, that would also work very well in Flash. Now, another way of doing this, just to show you that it's done quite often, is what's called using an alpha channel. So I'm going to undo this so we get back to where we have a full background. Now the difference is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get back to the selection just around the parrot. There we go. And I'm going to go to my channels, and I'm going to create a new channel. This is a new mask channel. So this will save the channel as a mask, and you'll see that it says Alpha 1. What this is doing is creating an alpha channel that will transfer to video very well. It'll also transfer to AfterFX, and you'll see how that works in just one moment. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file, and I'm going to save it as a Targa file. The reason why is I like to use Targas for video because they let me know that they're being used in video. So this is transparent, and it's a TGA, Targa file. I click on Save, and I'm going to go ahead and save it as 32 bits per pixel, and I could go ahead and compress that file if I wanted. And it's a lossless compression, so it won't lose any quality. Click OK, and now I have that file done. Of course, I could save a Photoshop document and get access to some of this stuff as well. Anyway, let's go ahead and import these two files into AfterFX. If I select the two files from my document window, I'm going to drag them into my project. Let me make sure that I'm looking at the project folder there. Motion Graphics, select the two files, and click and drag them over. Now here's the transparent PNG, and here's the Targa. If I go ahead and create a new box, or a new composition, and drag the background, the blue background to it, just so I can see it, the blue background, I'm going to drag my PNG to be above that, and I'm going to drag it right in. Here we go. And there you can see that I have a PNG with transparency, and I can see it above the blue box. I could move the blue box behind it if I wanted to. Now, if I want to bring in my Targa file, you'll see that it also has transparency. Now, the difference between these is that the Targa file actually has the ability for me to turn off that transparency if I don't want to see it. But let's go ahead and look at that particular footage item just by double-clicking on it. So here is the PNG footage item, and beside it, somewhere in here, there's the PNG, here's the targa. So there are two different items there. If I click on RGB, the RGB symbol right here, you can go down to alpha, and that will actually show you what the alpha channel looks like. And if I switch between the two, you'll see that the alpha channels look very similar. Of course, they're based upon the exact same thing. I'll go back to RGB on both and go back to my main timeline. Now the difference is that the PNG does not have an alpha channel. It actually just has transparency, and the target file actually has an alpha channel. To disable that alpha channel, I could actually create an effect, such as effect channel, and then I can go to alpha layers, and I can even go to shift channels if I want, or let's see what alpha levels say. Maybe not. Let's go to effect channel, set channels, and for the alpha, I'll go ahead and turn it off, or full. There we go. So now you can see with the targa, I still have the image behind it, but what I've done is I've set it so the alpha channel doesn't show anymore. And there it's back to normal. So that's kind of interesting between targas and PNGs when you have transparency or not. At least this gives me the option of using that alpha channel or not. And that's the end of this tutorial. In some other tutorials, we'll use more alpha channels and masking techniques.